Is mindfulness a doorway to arrogance? What is mindfulness? This will be our topic today. Mindfulness practices, they serve a purpose. And a big element of the purpose of mindfulness practice is to fracture the cohesion of the identity to our habits. So we start to break apart experience. And this serves a very useful purpose because it helps us to acknowledge and actually be able to perceive what it is that we are doing. Because most of what it is that we are doing is detracting from the evolution on the spiritual path. Usually these are denser habits. They are judgment-based, and a lot of what we do is to support and create sturdy pillars for the identity to sit on, to rest in. Right? That is what the identity feels comfortable doing. So we engage in mindfulness practices, and we start to realize, oh, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that thing, I'm thinking this way, I'm feeling that. So there's tremendous value in being able to perceive this. The minutiae of who and what we are in that moment, whatever that moment might be. And we start to realize that who and what we are is actually what we're doing. And the identity is an action, a continuum of actioning that's taking place. All these habits that make up, the amalgamation of which make up the identity, these are habits of action that are constantly taking place. So as we become aware of these, we are then able to stop feeding them with our energy, right? What we touch with the attention grows because of the energy that is fed to it through the attention. So this is why what we attend to with the mind becomes very, very important. What we attend to with awareness becomes very, very important. If we are acknowledging our flaws and then attending to them, acknowledging our habits of identity and then attending to those with a lot of energy, we end up throwing a bunch of energy, feeding energy into these habits. And this makes it very difficult to actually progress because we are engaged in a process kind of like the car insurance companies here in Canada. They're constantly in the process of suing themselves because someone has there's one company, one person has an accident, and then they're suing this person whose insurance is taking care of it. So the same thing happens with ourselves, is the part of us that is trying to dissolve all the issues, to be aware and mindful of the issues, is then also feeding energy into the issues. So this comes down to that age-old saying of you can't solve a problem from the place that it was created. Yet this is the very thing that we do when we're doing the spiritual work, is we try to do it. So then you get into mindfulness and how it can be detrimental, because you develop, there's a type of arrogance that comes into play, which is part of this fracturing process. And as we go through this fracture, and you will hear people who have done a lot of practice start speaking in ways often of, I get to watch myself. I get to watch the feelings come and go. This observational personality starts to take over and starts to be fed. So the ego, the identity that the energy starts to go towards, is the watcher, we might say, or the observer. And again, there is value in having developed this capacity, but there is negative value in identifying with that, bigger arc of awareness in that sense, right? This arc of awareness of habits. Because as soon as we start to identify with that, we basically start to develop a dissociative type of disorder where you are not a part of any experience. You are separate from the experience that you're having. Now, You might think, okay, well, what about the peace that comes with that? You might think, if you've been practicing this, there's tremendous peace and tranquility that can come from not engaging with your lowest self, with your lowest identity, and attaching into that stuff, whatever your turbulence you might be going through. There's a lot of peace in stepping back, right? Stepping away, detaching. And we have to be very cognizant that detachment is not non-attachment. You think, well, how are those different? Well, detachment is something that you do. It's an action that you take. You detach yourself. But if you are not attached, you're simply not doing this instead of doing this. That makes sense. Grasping versus relinquishing. When you start to develop a habit and then an identity habit of doing relinquishment, you end up cultivating, it's the type of like yin addiction, yin phase addiction, in terms of like the yang phase and the yin phase of how energy and form and appearance coalesces and coalesces. So when you develop a yin phase addiction, then you start to pedestalize and identify with the dissolving aspect, the seceding aspect. And this then creates a type of dispersion, so that anything that is perceived, that is felt, that is of experience, that is of appearance, is the person failing at the experience of non-perception and non-feeling. This is like the yin addiction. So instead of equanimity, we develop apathy. And if we are cultivating apathy, then we are cultivating indifference. Indifference being one of the three poisons of, we might say, mental training and awareness. The three being indifference, and then of course rejection and acceptance. So if we are working mindfulness and we are cultivating a type of pride in stepping back from situations, we seek that emptiness, we seek non-experience, we seek non-sensation, and we will end up labeling experience and sensation, etc., as Maya or illusion. We'll start to go, okay, well, the real thing is nothing. But all of the stuff is part of nothing. So if we are attaching to the phase of the stuff moving on its way to non-experience, of appearance moving on its way in its dissolution phase towards non-experience, then we will end up suppressing experience, suppressing sensation, suppressing everything that is innate to the yang phase or the becoming phase. So we can't get stuck on the unbecoming phase because there are issues. If you end up working on the suppressive side of things, those types of folks very often end up with, again, dissociative type of disorders and depressive type of disorders, because you are letting the ego percolate, saturate inside of this little tiny box of what it means to be in your own head developed or spiritually attuned or enlightened or whatever, and you are sweeping under the rug all of experience. This is very much what starts to happen, and you'll hear this in the language, which is, oh, it's so interesting to watch, like I said, so interesting to like watch myself, watch the feelings come up and watch this. And there's this thing of I am better than my thoughts. The mindfulness, the observer, is better than the feelings, is the mindfulness, the observer, is better than appearance, is better than the body. And there's a pedestalization of the observer and a whatever the opposite of pedestalization is of appearance and experience. What you'll come to find is that that is just one more identity, one more farce, one more story that that the ego is very very good at tricking us on the path, in the sense of offering the mask of spiritual liberation and putting that mask on different facets, or different faces of the identity, and go, oh look, this one might be a liberated experience, and then you sort of figure that one out. It goes, oh well, we'll move that mask over to this other face of mine of identity, and this keeps happening. So anytime that we think we have found the thing, we need to go, okay, well, who found the thing? Right? What is the quality of the emanation that is clinging to the thing that has been found? And at that point, it is not mindfulness, it is not this breaking apart of experience so that you can detach from it. It is the quality, the freedom of the being, we might say, the emanation that is of that experience. Right? The emptiness experience, emptiness phenomena. Right? This is sort of the crux of a lot of this stuff. So what is the quality? What is the evolution? What is the freedom, the liberative capacity of the being that is of the experience? Because if we look at observer and object are the same thing, then how far can we possibly bastardize that total union, which is not what we think of as just like, one thing, just like, yes, the wave is the ocean, the rain is still water, but then there's also the appearance of the wave and the ocean. So there's this dichotomy that always is resolving, this constant dichotomizing and resolution that's sparking forth as appearance appears and unappears. So we want to look at the quality of the emanation, the liberation of the emanation, that freedom, and that is the experience itself. So instead of becoming like a meditation robot that is always attached to, this would probably be another video, attached to the calm abiding type of experiences, the calm abiding type of skills, which is usually done through one-pointedness, and then the nervous system is allowed or able to just poof. So attachment to that turning off of the nervous system, then one tries to live their life from that place of the nervous system being turned off, and you end up suppressing experience, like we were saying. So we have the quality of the emanation, the liberation of the emanation, the being that is aware of itself and itself as everything else, and that becomes the person who can then engage fully with experience and also be free from any identification, attachment to, and prolonging of the phenomena of that experience. Because what holds appearance in place so that it can't do its amorphous dance is the identity clinging to it. Right? The identity latches onto it and perceives it from the place of identity. When it's perceived from the place of identity, it gets pinched down, and then the identity is where the energy starts to consolidate, and that appearance gets stuck in place in relation to its associated identity. So anyway, hope you found that helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. If you're interested in training, please check out the upcoming retreat in June. This is in Canada, British Columbia, and it's a 1-month training split into a level 1 initiation, that's 7 days, a level 2 introduction to spheric practice and magic, and the invocation deity yogas, and then the extended, level 2 extended, which is another 2 weeks, which will round out the month. And that is a bunch of integrative type of explorations and practices. Okay, thank you, and hopefully we'll see you there. Bye.